Brazil's top anti-corruption judge, Sergio Moro, who has been the driving force in uncovering the country's vast corruption, himself became ensnared in a corruption scandal.
He's been lionized in the Brazilian and in the northern media for the last 2 years as being this impartial anti-corruption crusader. But what's come out in the last week, there have been reservations about him all along by a lot of people, because it seems like he's targeting one specific political party, the PT party, and he's letting people off from much larger corruption charges who are involved with conservative parties like PSDB. The charges against him right now are that he's set up a scheme of selling sentence reductions to people who plea bargain as part of the Lavajato investigation, which is looking into corruption in the construction industry and the petroleum industry, and its relationship with political parties, but mainly the PT party. There's a defendant in the case named Tacla Duran, who's a lawyer for Odebrecht Construction Company. Now, he was accused of money laundering, and they immediately got in touch with him to make a plea bargain, because this is the way that they're gathering evidence in the case, by arresting business leaders and then allowing them to plea bargain their way out of jail if they testify mainly against ex-President Lula, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. In the case of Tacla Duran, he was charged with money laundering, and then the godfather, the best man of Sergio Moro and his wife's wedding, who's a partner in Sergio Moro's wife's law firm, got in touch with Duran and offered a sentence reduction in exchange for 5 million reais paid under the counter. And this sentence reduction would have eliminated jail time. He would have been under house arrest. The next day, they sent the terms of the sentence reduction agreement, plea bargain agreement, to Duran, and he decided not to do it because it included him having to confess to crimes he said that he didn't commit. He immediately fled to Spain and turned himself over to the Spanish government as a witness in Spanish government investigation into corruption in the Odebrecht Construction Company. Sergio Moro tried to extradite him, and the Spanish government refused because they said he didn't present any concrete evidence whatsoever. So last Thursday, Tacla Duran testified via video conference to the Brazilian Congress about a corruption scandal involving the JBS Meatpacking Corporation. And during his testimony, he detailed the plea bargaining invitation that Moro's wife's law partner made to him for 5 million reais in cash. He accused the Lavajato investigation of falsifying documents. And he ended his testimony accusing Lavajato investigators of creating a plea bargaining industry involving millions of dollars and hundreds of business executives. And this is very suspicious. It's suspicious because, first of all, there have been some very important conservative politicians in Brazil who have been completely untouched in the Lavajato investigation, despite massive amounts of audio and video evidence, including 2014 presidential runner-up Aécio Neves, who was caught on audio asking for $20 million in bribes from the JBS Meatpacking Company and hasn't gone to jail at all or not even been suspended from the Senate. And also, there's photos of him laughing with Moro. Apparently, they were friends. So this is troubling. And it's also troubling when you look at the number of high-ranking corrupt businessmen who've had their sentences drastically reduced in the last few months as part of the Lavajato investigation, which makes you think this isn't a unique case with Tacla Duran. There's the example of one of the biggest contraband money changers in Brazil, Alberto Youssef. He's a millionaire. He was sentenced to 122 years in Lavajato, and in mid-October, Sergio Moro reduced his sentence to 4 years of house arrest with credit for time served. And there's about a dozen similar cases. So what this all comes down to is it's just more evidence that affirms what a lot of critics of Lavajato have been saying for 2 years now, is that it's not an impartial investigation into corruption, as it's been portrayed in the New York Times, in the Washington Post, and the Guardian, and other papers like this. It's actually a kind of political witch hunt designed to destroy Lula's candidacy next year, in the presidential elections. All evidence points to there being clear conflict of interest because of his wife, her party connections to the PSDB party. She used to be a legal counsel to the vice governor of Paraná state from PSDB party. And the fact that none of the members of that party, who are the biggest people implicated in these corruption scandals, have ever been arrested. The poll numbers, the most recent poll came out last week, and Lula's lead in the polls continues to increase. He's got more than 2 times the support of his nearest competitor, who is a neo-fascist holdover from the military dictatorship named Jair Bolsonaro. It's a stressful moment in Brazil because it seems like after Dilma Rousseff was illegally removed from power in 2016, we're living in a state of exception where the rule of law doesn't really matter anymore. I think there's a general feeling that regardless of whether he's guilty or innocent, they'll find some way to prevent him from running. And if they can't prevent him from running, maybe try to kill him, because the Supreme Court justice in charge of the Lavajato investigation died in a mysterious plane crash the day before he was going to release the results of the investigation. In the last elections, presidential candidate Eduardo Campos died in a plane crash before the election, propelling Marina da Silva to be a candidate who's favored by a lot of sections of the northern elite as well. And so I think that there's a general feeling of worry right now that first, Lula won't be allowed to run. And second, if he's allowed to run, they'll just cancel the elections and change it to parliamentary elections, indirect elections like they had in 1985.
As Brazil enters 2018, a crucial presidential election year, former President Lula da Silva is currently the frontrunner. However, as Brian Muir explained, it is far from clear whether the country's governing class will allow him to run and will send him to prison instead. Meanwhile, the Lavajato corruption scandal, which at first looked like it might clean up Brazilian politics, is actually muddying the waters even more.
Vou provar que lá no Moro